Colleagues.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, Chair, you audible.
Yes. We're starting at 1:15.
Yes, Chair.
All right. Also, the SOP is done. Mr. Ryder? Nandipa, can you hear me?
Yes, Chair, I can hear you.
Okay, I thought there was a problem on my side. Let me greet Mr. Maria. I saw his name. Mr. Maria, good evening.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening to everybody.
Good evening. Colleagues, thank you so much. Let me just welcome the colleagues and then state that the time now is 19 minutes past 6 o'clock. Colleagues, the agenda is as is presented. It's shown on the screen. I've introduced just one item. It's a new item. It was not part of the items that were adopted early in the first quarter for this meeting. Is item number 3, briefing by legal services on the legal opinion. Colleagues will recall that was it last week? There was a lengthy debate on the on whether the delay in presenting the letter of deployment. Number 1, in sending, in tabling the letter of deployment, because the president must table the letter of deployment with the speaker, who then refers it to the committee. Whether the delay was unreasonable, because in terms of the law, the president must inform Parliament promptly. Promptly was defined to mean without unreasonable delay. At the end of the debate last week was whether the delay was unreasonable. There was appreciation that there was a delay, because the letter is dated the 28th of February, referring to the deployment that whose period started on the 16th of January. It's for 3 months until the 16th of April. And we received the letter on the 28th of February. So from the 16th of January to the 28th of February, there was, there was no debate that when the Constitution says Parliament must be informed promptly, that a letter that was written to Parliament about more than a month later, I think about 2 weeks later, constitute. In fact, it was delayed, but the issue was whether we can deem that delay unreasonable. So I then said, no, let's park the debate and in the meantime, go through the legal opinion. In fact, we have two legal opinions, as it were, or legal opinion that talks to this matter. And it was clear that the legal opinion wasn't that much clear on, it was clear on when, on defining the term promptly to mean that without delay. But the question was, when will we deem the delay to be unreasonable? But we thought, because we are interpreting the law, we should defer that question to the legal scholars to prepare a legal opinion to guide both this committee and the department on that issue. So it is on that score that I brought the matter up so that we settle it once and for all, at least at a level of understanding what is expected of us, and when we deem the delay unreasonable. Right. So the matter is on the agenda. So essentially, we have three main items on the agenda. Is that briefing, is a presentation by the legal services. I'm told that the legal services will be represented by Advocate Njigena. And then the other briefing is by the Military Ombud on progress and challenges facing the institution, or on progress with respect to the challenges identified as facing the institution, in respect of legislative amendments, as well as the ongoing investigation in the unit. And then the next point is the briefing by the Defense Force Service Commission and the Minister on the outcome of the retreat on the implementation of the Defense Force Service Commission recommendations. So I'm not going to give background to this because it's there in the presentation that we'll receive this evening. So I would rather leave it to the person who will be giving us the presentation, and then we'll then deal with the minutes or adopt I will present the program of the committee for the second term, and then we adopt the minutes. So colleagues, this is the agenda for tonight. I recognize the presence of the minister and the deputy minister in the meeting, and I welcome both the minister and the deputy minister. I also recognize the delegation from the Defense Force Service Commission, is led by its chairman, Mr. Robertson, and there is also a deputy chairman or a deputy chairperson, Ms. Sepolosa, and other commissioners. There are about 5 commissioners present in the meeting: Dr. Zulu, Advocate Kumalu, Dr. Advocate Mbana, Ms. Mabilani, and Dr. Esop. And I also welcome the delegation led by the Lieutenant General retired Masondo, our military ombuds. He's accompanied by the Deputy Military Ombud, Damana Nkosana, and the staff and members of staff from that office. So that then constitutes the delegation that is in the meeting to tackle the items that are on the agenda. Colleagues, I present the agenda as amended. Can I get a mover and a seconder?
Chairperson, from my side, if I may,
Yes.
I certainly welcome that amendment, and I will support that. If you allow me, I'll just give also just my brief background, and I sincerely appreciate the legal opinion. You'll remember and recall.
Sorry, Mr. Mare. Let's do one thing at a time. So you are moving for the acceptance of the agenda.
Yeah,
Can I get a seconder?
I just want to qualify my moving forward.
Chair.
So no, Mr. Mare, just stop at that. I've presented the agenda, and you have moved, and Mr. Mutley seconded.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Let's then go to item number 1. I have welcomed all of you colleagues. Let's take the apologies. Are there any apologies, Nandipa?
Chair, I received an apology from Ms. Mutapo. She says she's struggling to connect because of load shedding, but I see that she has just logged in just now, Chair.
Okay. Okay, no, fine. Okay. So, but do we have a quorum?
Yes, Chair, we do.
Thank you very much. All right. And then I'm now on item number 3. Let me take the discussion.
Chair.
After, yes, sir.
Chair, yeah, before you move to the next item, I'm not sure whether they've not received, but there's an apology of Honorable Nkosi, who's not well.
Oh, Honorable Nkosi is not well. Okay, let's accept that apology. Okay, there's no objection to that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mutley. And okay, colleagues, let's then take this item. He is going to be brief, and on this, I'm not expecting any discussion because the purpose is to clarify matters, but I will welcome questions of clarity if you want, clarity, colleagues. May I welcome you, Advocate Jigela, and please take the platform. But before that, Minister, are you in the meeting?
Chairperson, I am in the meeting. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
We're doing okay.
Okay, under the circumstances. Thank you so much.
Very much.
DM, thanks. Welcome, Minister. DM.
Honorable Chair and members, good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Now over to you, Advocate Jigana.
Good evening, Chairperson, and good evening to the honorable members and colleagues on the platform. Am I audible, Chairperson?
Yes, you are, Advocate.
Chairperson, I propose to deal with the matter in a very summarized way. I have been assured that the opinion was circulated already, so I do not propose to read from it, but to just highlight what we consider to be the salient features of what we are saying.
Okay.
Chairperson, I think in your introduction, in your introductory remarks, you had already summarized where we come from to the point where we are now. The issue before us is specific to a particular decision by the president to extend the employment of the Defense Force in fulfillment of an international obligation in relation to the SADC. And that period relates to January up to April. However, the committee only received, or Parliament only received, the notification or information from the president on the 28th, or at least the letter that is informing Parliament is dated the 28th of February, which means it's a period of just over a month since the extension or the decision to extend the employment of the Defense Force. And in our understanding and in our instructions, Chairperson, that seems to be the bone of contention and the concern that the committee has with regard to that. Chairperson, I want to go back that this is an issue, as the Parliamentary Legal Services we had given advice on as far back as 2003, as you will see from the record. So it will appear that it's a matter that has been with us for quite a while now. We had given previous opinions on it, on what Section 201, which I will go into in just a few minutes. So I have to say this, we still stand by that opinion, and it will be supplemented to the extent that is necessary in respect of the specific circumstances that we are dealing with here now. In the letter of request, Chair, that was sent to us, there were 3 specific questions that were posed to us. I just need to get to that. One of the first question was, given the delay between the 16th of January to the 28th of February, whether that delay is unreasonable. Chairperson, that is the question that we find difficult to answer in the circumstance, for the reason that we have not been made privy of what were the reasons for the delay in the first place. We can only assess the reasonableness of the delay in circumstances where we are provided with why it was delayed. So it is difficult to provide an opinion in general terms where there are no specific reasons that are provided. It could easily be that there is a justification for the delay, but because we are not privy as to the reasons why it was not done in time for an extension that happened a month ago. So we are having a difficulty to answer you on that question. And that's the issue we raise in the opinion, that you can't deal with the reasonableness of the delay in the absence of the reasons why in the first place there was the delay. But of course, like I said, Chair, in my introduction, that it seems like this is a continuing challenge that faces Parliament in respect of the deployments or employment of the Defense Force in many instances. And that's why it goes back as far as 2003. So it's a matter that needs to be dealt with between the two arms of government, which is the executive and parliament or the legislature. But in the circumstances of this particular matter, we are not able to definitively express an opinion whether the delay is unreasonable. But while I'm there, Chairperson, I need to say this. What may be the difference in this particular instance is the fact that you are dealing here with an extension of a deployment as opposed to a new employment. So that could play a role as well in determining whether the expiry of time is reasonable. If it was a new deployment or employment of the Defense Force, the circumstances could justify a concern on the part of Parliament. But since it is an extension of what has already been authorized, the circumstances could be different and it may have to be assessed differently. But we're expressing no definitive opinion on that, Chairperson, because one has to look at the entire conspectus of circumstances that may have led to the delay. And Chair, I will leave it at that. And I will go, Chairperson, to the next issue. And unfortunately, Chairperson, your question 1 and question 2 are very closely related. And I think in my answer, I may have dealt with both of them. The third question, therefore, is what has to be done? If Parliament over the past 27, 28 years has been experiencing this problem, and I am generalizing now, looking at the first opinion that we gave in 2003, it seems like this is the problem that has been in the system for quite a while. That it could be that the best way to deal with it, Chairperson, is for the committee in its report to the Speaker, because the communication is between the President and the Speaker then refers to the committee. That if the committee has this particular concern about the delays, in as far as them being informed about these employments, that the committee in its report, it raises its concern and perhaps requests that the Speaker takes the matter up with the executive or the President in terms of the concerns that Parliament may have in that regard. Chairperson, this has happened on a number of respects. I seem to recall that there was an issue on which we had to advise on, which related to the issue of the delays in the assent to bills that are passed by Parliament. So there is already an existing framework between Parliament and the Presidency in how they deal with those issues. And the Speaker seems to us to be the relevant office that can raise that concern on behalf of Parliament and the chairperson of the NCOP as the presiding officers. So there is that already existing arrangement, not only on this issue, on the issue of assent to bills, and on other various issues, which I need not go into. But Chairperson, before I go to the conclusion, there is another issue. You will see in the opinion, we set out the regulatory framework that governs this. the issue of the deployment of the Defence Force, and specifically we speak to Section 201. Section 201, like I've already indicated in my introduction, that it says Parliament must be informed promptly. In our previous opinions, we had said promptly means without unreasonable delay. But if you go down that section, Section 201, subsection 4, reveals an interesting fact which the committee may want to consider. And that revelation is this one, Chairperson. It says if Parliament does not sit within the first 7 days of the employment of the Defence Force, the President must inform the appropriate oversight committee. It's a very indirect way of addressing the issue. But to us, it suggests that the use of the word promptly and linked to a period of 7 days in circumstances where Parliament is not sitting suggests that promptly in this context means it must be immediate, it must be soon as the decision is made. Hence the period in 2014 that is linked to 7 days. And like I said, Chairperson, it's an indirect way of dealing with the issue. You and I may not know why the drafters of the Constitution chose to do it in that way. But to us, it suggests the level of promptness that is required in respect of addressing the issue of to what extent Parliament should be informed of the decision once it's made to employ the Defence Force. But of course, Chairperson, I go back to the point I made, that in this particular instance, we are dealing with an extension of an existing employment already. And that could play a role in influencing how we assess the reasonableness of the delay. Chairperson, I don't know if there is any other point that I need to cover in this, but in my attempt to just highlight the salient points of the opinion, which I understand all the members have, I think that is the best I can do at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Advocate Njigela, for the presentation. And may I now invite questions of clarity. We're not discussing the matter. I don't think it's the right time to do so now. We want just to check if the issues are as clear as they appear to me. Colleagues, any other hand? I don't see any hand.
Mine is up, sir.
Yes, Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much, Advocate, for the presentation. I think that is very much in line, as I understand it also, and the meaning and the intention of the 7 days. Would it be wrong for us as a committee, given the reference to the 7 days, where it says that it will then be communicated to the committee, and the chairperson, as last time, indicated that then the communication is to the committee chairpersons, to the co-chairpersons. Would it be then not be suffice of us or allowable for us to inquire from the presidency the reasons for delay? There might be good reasons, there might not be. Only for us to deal with that. My concern is that, you know, we sit in difficult times. We already lost a soldier in Mozambique. And they
are you still asking a question, Mr. Murray?
Yeah, for clarity.
Just ask the question so that we don't delay other items. Just questions. We're not discussing it.
I just want to motivate why I'm asking this, because purely to ask a question means a yes or a no, and it's not a yes or a no answer, as I understand it. So I just want to ask, given the circumstances that the employment, because the Constitution doesn't make a difference between extension and employment. It only talks about employment. The letter of the president also do not refer to extension. It only refers to authorization of an employment for a period. So, and it's for a limited period. It's not for like a 3-year or a 1-year period. It's for 3 months. And this is now six weeks after the actual employment authorization. Because we must be put in a position to do oversight over this. Would it be unreasonable for us to approach the presidency to ask whether there are delays, and maybe can we make a request that under such circumstances that maybe the president consider communicating to us within 7 days? Would that be unreasonable? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rader.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, I want to also appreciate the legal opinion, but I also want to say, a legal opinion can be debated. You said you only want questions, but a legal opinion can be debated because it's common cause that if you ask 7 lawyers for an opinion, you will get 7 different opinions. However, I'm not going to venture into that territory. I think the legal opinion is reasonably sound. I'm not going to debate it, but I have 2 specific questions. The first one is, the fact is that in your comments now, Advocate, you spoke about the fact that this is an extension and not an actual employment or initial employment. And one would think that if you are extending an existing deployment or employment, you would know that you plan to do that. You would know the circumstances beforehand. So it should then actually become easier to ask for that beforehand, or am I misreading what you're saying? I would suggest that perhaps one is more able to plan with an extension. So I'm not sure why you brought that in. Perhaps you can just comment on that. That's the first issue, Chair. And then the second issue relates a little bit to the legal opinion itself, and it relates to so you'll remember that initially we spoke a little bit about when I first joined this committee, I was struggling a little bit with where we fit into the picture. And the picture, actually, we derive our mandate from section 228 of the Legacy Constitution, the 1993 South African Constitution. And I'd just like to ask if that actually has been taken into account when drawing up the legal opinion, because that also is quite clear. And if I can read from section 228.4, it says that the president shall, when the National Defence Force is employed for service, referred to in section 227(1)(a), B, or E, and just to confirm that this deployment falls within that, it says, forthwith inform Parliament for the reasons for such employment. And then section 3 of that says, to meet our committee, Chair, specifically, is to meet expeditiously, but not later than 14 days after the commencement of such employment. So it actually places further responsibility that not only should he report within 7 days, but that this committee must meet within 14 days. Whether we are on recess or not, that's one of the joys of being on the Joint Standing Committee of Defense, in my opinion, is that we must meet at the President's pleasure when he delivers one of those instructions to us or those letters to us. If I can just confirm, has that section 228 of the 1993 Constitution been taken into account in this opinion? And do you agree, Advocate, that we need to meet within 14 days of the deployment? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mutle, and then Mr. Chabele, my co-chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good evening to colleagues. Chair, interpretation of the law, for me, it's a difficult subject to deal with. But maybe the clarity that one might need might not necessarily come from the opinion, because also on the opinion, there's been mentioned that due to reasons not being provided, there was limitation on their side to advise appropriately. But maybe the SecDef or the minister might be able to clarify in terms of the process, so that we get an understanding as to if there was a delay indeed, where the delay would have come from the department or the ministry, the office of the president, and the office of the speaker. But given the fact that the letter is dated, it also leaves much to be desired. So maybe that process can be also be explained to us, so that at least we are able to understand the process.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mare. Sorry, Mr. Mutle. Mr. Chabele. Mr. Chabele. Okay. Mr. Chabele is, I think, is facing some connectivity challenges. Colleagues, I just want to.
I'm driving in between receptions. I'll just stop. Am I clear now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You may...
No, I might have. I heard part of the legal opinion. Of course, I read it also, and my worry is that we need to know what we want from this. One, I think we should just write to the speaker and say, rather than making an inquiry into the matter, to say this, the letter from the president was written on such and such a date, and then it reached us on this date. It took a very long time. What might have happened? And that next time when the letters come from the president, they must be given to the co-chairpersons immediately. And then within a particular time, within a reasonable space of time, then the committee the chairpersons can convene a committee of the JS, of the Joint Standing Committee to deliberate on the matter. Without trying to apportion blame, where was the delay and all that, if we get an explanation and say, this is what we want in the future going forward.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Are you done, Mr.? Yes, you are audible. Are you done?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, colleagues, you seem to want to stretch the discussion beyond what is stated in the legal opinion, and in the process, ignore the recommendation. This is what the legal opinion says. Given the practical challenges that are highlighted above, we would recommend that the JSCD, in its report to the presiding officers, raise the issue as a matter of concern for the presiding officers to raise it directly with the president through normal channels. I don't think advocate would go beyond that. So he's giving us advice in his recommendation and stated that that is protocol. All right. And then the second point, colleagues, I want us to deal with. Mr. Murray said, so that advocate don't deal with this because Mr. Murray decided to misread. It's a message I sent to the JSCD. Decided to misread the message and selected the part that he wants. This is the message. I've since forwarded the same to Mr. Murray. I said it was during the course of our exchange. The President informs Parliament via the Speaker, and the Speaker refers the letter to the committee. When Parliament is not in session, he informs the committee via the co-chairs. I went on to say the co-chairs can't write to the President and ask him where is the letter. I would prefer that we leave that responsibility with the Speaker. Sometimes we are not too sure whether the delay is in the department or the presidency or the Speaker. So, so that's the discussion we had. I think, colleagues, I will let the advocate respond to the issues that are purely for clarity, and those that are for a debate, we leave it for another day. Advocate.
Chairperson, I think you have already dealt with the issue of how Parliament should deal with the concern it may have with regard to the delay. We are making a specific recommendation to the committee on how it should deal. So I can't take that any further than that. It is for the committee to decide how it should do it. We propose that it should be done through the office of the Speaker.
Okay.
Chairperson, the issue of the extension and the employment, and Honorable Ryder is correct that the Constitution speaks to employment. It does not deal with an extension. And that is factually correct. But that does not mean that the issue of an extension may not be a considered fact by the people who make these decisions. So I will not take it further than that. We raised it in that context that in assessing the reasonableness of the delay, this is one of the issues that the committee may want to consider. But it is not to say it is an excuse for the delay, but it could be that it is a contributing factor. And of course, this is in the realm of speculation, Chairperson, because we don't know what were the reasons for the delay.
Okay.
But we raised, and again, we will leave it at that. On the issue of Section 228, Chairperson, it's a matter that we have considered, but we decided not to deal with it for the purposes of this opinion, because you had specifically directed us to answer 3 specific questions. So it's a debate that has to be had in terms of what is the coexistence between Section 228 and Section 201 of the Constitution as of 2022. Because 228 seems to suggest something else, and 201 does not even speak to that. Now, Chairperson, in law, you will know that the latest piece of legislation is assumed to have intended to amend the previous one. And that is the space we are in. And again, Chairperson, at this moment, we are expressing no definitive opinion on that issue. But indeed, Mr. Ryder is correct. It's something that has to be looked into as to how the two coexist as of today. But we expressed no opinion because the questions that were asked to us were direct and specific, and we answered those. Chairperson, I think the question, well, the comment from Mr. Mutle is really not for us to respond to. Maybe the minister will deal with it in her remarks. But as of us, I don't think it's a question that Parliament's legal services can answer as to where the delay may have been, or what is the process within the department leading up to the information that is sent to Parliament. So, Chairperson, I will leave it at that. I think those are the questions were directly related to legal.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Colleagues, now we have received the presentation. Do you want me to put this matter for a debate at some point? Today, we're just receiving a briefing on the legal opinion so that we separate the two issues.
Can I make a suggestion? My suggestion at this stage is that we should not debate it. You know, it's the Constitution. And I think what we should do is follow the advice of the legal advisor. I think that is the safest way. We don't need to debate that. If we want to debate it, we must know that part of the debate will be change of the Constitution. And I don't think that is the intention of what we are working with. So I would very much be happy to use or to follow the advice of the legal advisor, and then hopefully, you know, the speaker or the chairperson of the NCOP will take that up with the presidency. Yeah, so I think that is where we stand, and hopefully then we get an indication of what the delay was, and maybe there's no, you know, mole idea or anything to this, but I think the message will also get to the president that you know, we are keen on the work that we must do. So that is my proposal, to follow the advice of the legal advisor.
Okay, the recommendation, you are proposing that we accept the recommendation as advised. Any objection to the proposal?
I'll second that proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's seconded. Advocate Jigela, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. You can then disengage at any time. In fact, when you want to, we can then move to the next item. All right. The following item is the briefing by the Defense Force Commission. Once again, wait a minute, I can't remember which comes first. Between the two, Nandipa. Which one is number 2? Which one comes after
Military,
this item?
Office of the Military Ombudsman.
Oh, Office of the Military Ombuds. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm actually using the gadget. That's the reason why I couldn't quickly go back to my messages in the inbox. All right, General Masondo, good evening.
Good evening, Chair.
Yes, without much ado, I will ask you to do the presentation, after which it will be the general. But before I ask you and then Mr. Anderson, let me invite the minister to make opening comments, after which we'll then bring you into the discussion to do the presentation. Minister?
Chair, good evening once again. I think we should allow General Masondo to go straight into the briefing and then take questions. I am just thinking that otherwise we will have a very long night. So I think that let's just go straight into it, General, with your report, and then take discussions, and from then onwards, we may, DM and I, chip in if and when it is necessary. But I would beg that we do that, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Over to you, General.
Co-chairpersons of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense and members, thank you very much for the opportunity to present before your committee. Before I continue with the presentation, please, co-chairs, allow me just to greet the minister on whose behalf we're actually presenting, and also the deputy minister. We would ask to be allowed to flight our presentation, if IT can assist us with that, please.
It's done, you can flight, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. The aim of this presentation is to brief the Joint Standing Committee on Defense on the progress with challenges facing the institution, that is the Office of the Military Ombud, progress related to legislative amendments, and finally, progress related to ongoing investigation. To do this, we're going to follow the we're going to present the following two topics as part of our scope mandate: Office of the Military Ombud legislative mandate, progress related to legislative amendments, progress related to ongoing investigations, and finally, priorities of the office versus challenges by the office. In terms of our mandate, the office is mandated to investigate complaints lodged in writing. And I need to emphasize the fact that complaints must be lodged in writing, because otherwise we are not able to investigate. By members and former members of the Defense Force in terms of their conditions of service, and also complaints originating from members of the public about the official conduct of members of the SANDF. Coming to our legislative mandate, according to the preamble of our act, the office was established as an independent office of the Military Ombud. I want to emphasize as an independent office, because currently we're faced with a challenge that our act is silent in terms of the institutional form of the office, which is why as an office we've been embarking on a road to try and correct this. Furthermore, Section 6.4 states that the Ombud must investigate a complaint fairly and expeditiously without fear, favor, and prejudice. And as an office, we've been focusing on making sure that all the complaints are dealt with speedily. Section 6.11 states that the minister may assign the Ombud any other additional functions which are not consistent with the Act. In fact, this is the section that we utilized, for instance, to investigate the Khoza case, because in that case, we didn't receive a complaint from the family. And I would want to skip the other sections and then just emphasize the sections that relate to the office being established as a separate office from the department, and furthermore that the Ombud is empowered to appoint and manage own human resources, and that the office must be funded from the monies appropriated by Parliament as part of the budget vote of the department. And lastly, that the Ombud is required to account for all monies received or paid. Considering these sections, in a letter that was dated the 15th of February 2016, the Auditor General concluded that the office should be listed as a public entity in terms of Section 47 of the PFMA. So we as an office are trying hard, therefore, to correct this problem with our act. I would like to proceed to deal with progress related to the legislative amendment. Currently, the legislative review process has been placed in abeyance to allow us to be able to consult with the Minister of Defense, that is the new minister, and the Government Technical Advisory Center. Because the consultation with the previous minister was done, and there was an agreement that we should then present to the COD so that the minister could have the advantage of other members in terms of taking the final decision on this issue. In the meantime, we have also been in consultation with GTEC from December 2021 to now this month, March, with a view to conduct an assessment of current status and challenges facing the office, so that GTEC can then make recommendations regarding the appropriate legislative amendments to address the challenges that I've alluded to. This process is expected to be finalized by the end of the month, and we are on standby also then to meet with our minister so that we can take the process forward. As to the progress related to ongoing investigations, we're going to share with the committee the statistics and trend analysis as on the 28th of February 22, because we collate the stats on a monthly basis. In the current financial year, we've got a caseload of 343 complaints, which is made up of 88 complaints that were carried over from the previous financial year, and 255 complaints that we received in the current financial year. To date, we've been able to finalize 258 cases, and we're currently left with a caseload of 85%. That amounts to the finalization rate of 75.2%. Looking at the profile of the complainants, most of the complaints we have received originate from current members of the SANDF, followed by former members, and followed by members of the public. We continue to receive some complaints from non-statutory force members, that is those who didn't integrate into the SANDF, and also former statutory force members. In terms of the nature of complaints that we have received as an office, the majority of those are about the conditions of service, which is 223. followed by official conduct, and the lastly 17 fall into the other category. Looking at the complaints per arm of service or division, the majority of complaints we are dealing with, they come from the South African Army. I think it is by virtue of the Army being the biggest service. Second to that is our complaints from the SAMS. SAMS is the smallest service, but the reason for so many complaints from them are challenges around the issue of OSD. I need to then also highlight the 27 complaints that we actually received from members of the public. Looking at the complaints that we received from the different provinces, we continue to receive the majority of complaints from Gauteng, because members in Gauteng can lodge their complaints via telephone and other social media platforms. But additional to that, they're able to come to the office in person. This time around, they are followed by the complaints we have received from KZN. And the reason why KZN all of a sudden has many complaints is because of an outreach program we conducted in the province, where we raised the awareness of the members, and therefore we were able to receive many complaints. And of course, the third is from the Western Cape, which has a big concentration of SANDF units. Looking at the complaints we have received in terms of gender, the majority of those, they come from males, which is 199, with 54 of the complaints coming from females. The two unknown is because in the complaint form, the members didn't actually state their gender. And as an office, before we finalize those complaints, we'll establish that fact. Next, we're looking at the mode of contact other than the initial complaint forms. And there we can see that 144 members contacted the office by way of telephone, 104 utilized electronic media. And as I indicated, then we had about 73 walk-ins. The next slide, we're looking at complaints about the official conduct. And you'll note there that in the previous financial year, we had a huge spike in terms of complaints received from members of the public, which was 56. And we believe that was occasioned by the countrywide deployment of the SANDF. In the current financial year, we have received about 15 of these complaints. We also trace the complaints in terms of their age. And I need to emphasize that this has been a focus of our office to make sure that we clear the backlog so that we get to a situation where if we have carryover complaints, those only pertain to the previous financial year. And I'm happy to report that for of the 88 that we carried over as of 31 March, we have dealt with the old case of 17-18 and also the 11 of 18-19. For 19-20, we have reduced the backlog from 15 to 2 cases. And for the previous financial year, from 61 to 9. And of course, in the current financial year, we've got that 74, which make a total active cases 85. This amounts therefore to a resolution rate of about 87.5%. Finally, looking at the challenges that were faced with as an office, we have dealt with these challenges along these 7 priorities that we have as an office. And of course, those priorities cover all areas of our work. The first one is effective and efficient resolution of complaints. With this priority, we seek to improve the turnaround times and systematically and efficiently reduce carryover complaints. And of course, during our investigation, we were able to identify systemic issues. And of course, these we point out to the SANDF. Now, challenges in this regard is that the responses from the SANDF as an interested party remains to be very slow. And also in terms of the preliminary reports that we send to the Chief of the National Defense Force, the turnaround time for that has not been satisfactory. However, last month, we had our monthly meeting with the Chief of the National Defense Force, and we agreed to actually mitigate this situation. And lastly, I need to point out, this is not a challenge, that the inflow of complaints, new complaints, is slightly improving, and on the average is currently 23 per month. The next priority of the office is the implementation of the integrated communications, marketing and stategy and plan. This covers outreach programs to create public awareness, stakeholder relationship management, stakeholder perception, surveys, international relations, and branding and marketing. In this area of our work, we're severely affected by COVID-19, and we couldn't carry out most of the planned activities. And as a result, it impacted negatively on our expenditure as an office. The third priority of the office is institutional independence. I touched on this in my introduction. So the intention with this priority is to position the office for impactful implementation of our mandate. And of course, I need to point out that the previous minister had given us authority to deal with or to revise our act. And as an office, we took a deliberate decision to also address the gap, that is the gap I alluded to in terms of the act being silent on the institutional form of the office. And of course, in doing this, we are assisted by GTEC. And of course, we are dealing with phase 2 of the GTEC process. And of course, we indicated that currently this has been placed in abeyance so that we have the opportunity to interact with the minister before we can take this work forward. The next priority pertains to operationalizing the ministerial policy directive on enterprise resource support to the office. The aim of this directive was to put in place measures, structures, and systems to facilitate enhanced autonomy of the office in the expenditure of its appropriated budget as directed by Section 10 of the Ombud Act. And I must also state that this is a critical transitional step if we are to be given authority to become an independent institution. And of course, I'm sad to report that we have not made much progress in terms of operationalizing the ministerial directive simply because of challenges of interaction between certain functional areas in my office and that of the TOD. The fifth priority is institutionalization of governance, risk and compliance framework. The aim with this is to ensure accountable and effective management of resources through enterprise risk management. Of course, we cannot handle state monies without ensuring that we've got a GRC framework. But we are challenged in this because we're dealing with this as an over and above task in the office. It's not structured for, but at least we're doing something about it. The next is ensuring that we have as an office adequate funding for the compensation of employees. I need to point out that the ceiling in terms of compensation of employees that has been placed on the office is such that the office is not funded to pay all the staff that is currently employed in the office. So we've been in discussion with the Secretary for Defense on this issue, and we hope we can see some improvement because essentially the office was established with 89 approved posts. And so far, since the establishment of the office, we have never staffed more than 63 posts. And of course, given capacity challenges, we are not able to do our work as effectively as we would have liked to. But the biggest problem I need to undertake is the issue of over expenditure on the COE, which is not looked at kindly from the Treasury point of view. And lastly, our last priority is resource management. The intention with this is to ensure accountable, effective, and efficient resource management aligned to regulatory framework. This is one area we experience serious challenges because the turnaround time to satisfy our requirements is inordinately long, and it has an impact that we are unable to spend our operational budget as planned. Currently, our expenditure on the operational budget stands at 29%. And yet we've got a lot of requirements that have not been satisfied. And this poses a serious risk for the office. Honorable Chairperson, this brings me to the end of our presentation, and we are ready to take questions with my team here from the office. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, General Masondo, for the presentation. Colleagues, I think I can now open it up for discussion. The time now is 19:32. Ms. Bartlett, you are the first. I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair.
First
Thank
to
you,
go.
Chair. Sorry for not switching on my video.
And
No,
then
I
Mr.
have something with the problematic.
No, it's fine, you're welcome.
Okay, Chair. I just want clarity on the issue of the priorities of it under the challenges faced. I just want that because on firstly, I don't think it's any time frames. I'm not sure do we need time frames on this program. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'm not sure do we need time frames on this program, especially on descriptions. And then, Chair, the second thing is under challenges, né? The B9, they said that they approved 89 plain posts, but only 63. What's the reason? If they can just give me clarity on that.
Okay.
On the plain post, on the I think it was on the last slide.
Okay. Are you done, Ms. Bartlett?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You were audible. And then Mr. Ryder.
Wow, thank you, Chair. Right. Chair, thanks for the presentation, Mr. Masondo, or General Masondo. Sorry, every time I'm in a meeting, there's a Masondo. It's Chair of the NCRP, the Finance Deputy Minister, now here. So yeah, that's on a lighter note, Chairperson. General, look, in terms of your complaints that were brought forward, you had 88 complaints that were brought forward from the previous financial year, and then there's 85 that are carried forward. Now, look, I think that you know, I don't want to pick that apart specifically, except to say, of those 88, are there any of the 88 that have not been dealt with in the previous year that form part of the 85 that have still not been dealt with and that are being carried forward? Is my question. So, are there any really long outstanding cases that we're dealing with? If you could answer that for me, please. Then there was quite a concerning comment, and it related to the fact that you said that in Gauteng, you feel that you're receiving more complaints because you have got the physical office. And then in KwaZulu-Natal, because you had an outreach program, you received additional complaints and a higher volume than normal, which says to me that there's a bit of a problem with the process. And I'll be very honest and tell you that I was approached by a member of the South African National Defence Force with some genuine concerns. And when I asked them, they were not really aware of the Ombud. So I think there's a little bit of an education issue that is problematic. And I must also admit at the same time that I do accept that until you need an Ombud, you seldom look at an advert for the Ombud. So I note that, but I do think that there needs to be a little bit of an awareness campaign around the work of the Military Ombud. But you know, is there a need to extend that in-person interaction? And specifically, when I tried to help this person, I downloaded the forms off the website, which first of all wasn't easy. There is a dead link to the forms on one of the links. But when I got to the forms eventually, they became so complex and bothersome to fill in that actually I gave up eventually. And suggested to the person that she picks up the phone and makes a direct complaint to your office. So just to say that the forms themselves make it a little bit difficult to interact with you, which is probably why you're getting a better response where people are able to walk in and have someone assist them going through the reporting process. So I wanted to highlight that. Chair, thank you. I think that I have noted with concern the fact that the Ombud has indicated that the cooperation of the Department of Defense and the military has not always been prompt and as they would hope for. But I'm noting that for further action. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nreta. Honorable Mare.
Thank you, Chair. Just got two questions. The one is whether General Masondo can tell us of those cases that they've dealt with. They obviously make recommendations then on that. Do they have statistics on what happens with that recommendations? In other words, how many of their recommendations are actually implemented, and how many obviously, you know, ends up in file 13 or in the dustbin, whatever the case may be. My second point is just in terms of the Amendment Act, and I think we have raised it in the past. Currently, the Ombud only has make recommendations. So whether it is implemented, adhered to, it is the Ombud can do nothing about that. And we have stated it in the past that maybe when the legislation is amended, one must look at the enforcement authority, or at least some consequences if nothing is done about the recommendations and the Ombud doesn't receive any feedback whether the recommendations are implemented, and or whether, if it is not implemented, what are the reasons for that, and for the Ombud to consider that. I have just Googled the definition of ombudsman. It doesn't give ombud, but ombudsman. An official appointed to investigate individuals' complaints against maladministration, especially that of public authorities. Now, that certainly implies that this body must, I mean, if it cannot make sure that the recommendations are implemented and adhere to, or at least good reason being given why not, then one must ask the question, you know, what is the real purpose then of the office of the Ombud? And this is maybe why there's maybe such a bit of a negative image about the Ombud, because I have heard of many people say, yeah, I've reported it to the Ombud. Yeah, I've received the letter where his recommendation was that this be done and this be done, and nothing happens after that. So it is worthless. So that's just a question whether any attention had been given to a more enforcement authority, or at least, you know, that you can double check, and that people have got an obligation to at least explain to you why they don't adhere to your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. Thanks. It doesn't look like there's any other hand. General, I only have one question to you. I welcome your presentation. It gives us sufficient details to appreciate the work you have done in the year under review. We have read in the press, General, several times that in the border, I think this Mozambique and South Africa border, there has been ugly exchanges between the soldiers and the South African police. You know, it presents itself, in my view, as a tough war. It's not war yet, but there's tension, you know, as it were. Now, we have this body that is meant to preempt such things, to preempt people taking law into their own hands, because there is a body to which they can report or address their concerns. Now, if the police are, as it is reported, behaving in this manner towards our soldiers, or our soldiers towards them, I don't know who is a culprit, because we read it in the press. What do you suggest it be done? We don't want this to develop into a situation where you know, the two can't work in cooperation, because there are outstanding issues that remain unresolved between them. Maybe my suggestion, but depending on your answer, is that when you do roadshows, I think potential explosive areas like that one, we don't want death there, you know, and potential explosive areas like that one should in fact be prioritized prioritized so that you, at least if they are not aware that there is a body such as this that they can address their concerns to, you present to them and then handle matters in a peaceful way and in the manner that is in the way that we have read about it in the press. Thank you very much. And Mr. Maliake Shelembe, honorable member, it's your, I think you will be the last person on this item.
No, thank you, Chairperson. I think, some of the questions have been answered, but the one that just want to know, if, say, the complaint or the case, is linked to the office of the minister or staff or anyone related to that office, what happens is the ombuds able to deal with that case? If so, what happens if, say, the office of the ministry, do not take that recommendation from him? And the second one, I saw that in Mpumalanga, there's like they're not interested or they are not having any issues, like the number is too small. Are there any awareness program that has been conducted by the department or by the military ombuds to ensure that all provinces have full information in regard, and I think if maybe I can emphasize more on his independence, because now someone is taking the recommendation and someone is funding his department. And the last one, are there any incident previously, where the recommendation of his office were not entertained or were rejected or were not agreed upon by the office of the ministry? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shelembe. Colleagues, I think that concludes the AQ, the Q&A session. No, the questions. General, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairpersons and members. We'll try and respond to the questions in the manner in which they were posed. However, I need to indicate that the first question from Honorable Palet was not very clear. I don't know whether she wanted to establish the time frames for resolving the challenges that we're having, or we didn't quite get the question clearly.
Okay, just so that we do justice to the question. Honorable Bartlett, may you repose your question?
Yeah, Chair, now because I was looking under the descriptions, so I thought we might need time frames, but it's not that you must do it. I was just asking that question because of the descriptions.
Right, are you clear now, General?
They do have the program, but there's no time frames, but that's why I was asking. Do we need time frames on this, especially the challenges and then the descriptions?
Or in other words, you're actually asking how much time
do they need to resolve, because there's issues that needs to be resolved. I
see, okay. The average time you are able to resolve a case, General, so that you cannot have, I think the question she is having, so that you cannot have a case that carries over for 2 years, 3 years, and the fourth time. What time frames are you giving? Are you attaching to your cases.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just motivate on that question? Even if you give me just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking that, because I saw there were 79 cases that they carry over to 2022.
Yes. Are you done?
Yeah,
Yes, Chairman.
thank you very much. I think we now understand, and that is the time frame for resolving complaints that we receive as an office. First, I want to indicate that we had challenges in terms of timeously and expeditiously finalizing the complaints that we receive from our complainants, because of the fact that we have to seek or interact with the Defense Force in terms of getting more information on the complaint, that is making them aware of the complaint so that they can then respond to it, and then we investigate the facts as given to us. So those turnaround times were actually very lengthy until we, as an office, we took steps first to establish a liaison forum between the office and the staffs in the SANDF to look at the cases that we're dealing with and the challenges in terms of getting responses. Further to that, we have also established monthly meetings between myself as the Ombud and the Chief of the National Defense Force, where if issues are not resolved at the level of the staff liaison forum, then they are elevated to the Chief of the SANDF and myself, so that we can give direction in terms of how these can be speedily resolved. The next question was about the issue of us having 89 approved posts, and yet we have only staff 63. Yes, it's a fact the office was approved with 89 posts, but from the outset, what happened as we were recruiting staff and all that, that process was taking long, and we couldn't get speedily to a point where all the 89 posts were staffed. But in the intervening period, then Treasury was concerned about the HR costs in terms of government department, and therefore placed a ceiling in terms of how much can be spent. As part of that process within the department, it was then decided that we cannot staff more than 63 posts. And that's the number along which we are working. However, in terms of the actual allocation of the budget, we are funded for 57 instead of the 63 posts. And that is what is posing a challenge that therefore leads to over expenditure in terms of the ceiling that is imposed on compensation of employees. I don't know whether I can proceed then to the other questions, Chair.
Yes, you can proceed, sir.
From Honorable Raider, we wanted to know, of the 88 cases that we carried over from the beginning of the financial year, how many of these remain resolved? Of those, it's 11 cases that we have not as yet resolved. But as I indicated, we compile our stats at the end of the month. But as I was checking with staff, it looks like we are working on the 11, and that by the end of the financial year can actually also be reduced. Now, in terms of the people, or rather, as I made a presentation, I alluded to the fact that we received more complaints from KZN as a result of the outreach program we did there. And then Honorable Ryder expressed concern about the knowledge of the people of South Africa about the office of the Ombud. And of course, these outreach programs that we conduct on a yearly basis as an office, they are meant to create awareness about the office. The focus initially was on serving members, but we extended that to cover members of the public. But because South Africa is a big country, so we had to strategize as to how effectively we can do this. And therefore, the initial approach is to create awareness in the areas where the SANDF is deployed, that is along the border areas and all that. And once we have covered those areas, then we can extend to other provinces in the country. I need to say, we don't create awareness only through staff from the office conducting outreach programs. We also place articles in local newspapers so that people in the different areas can get to know about the office from their local newspapers. And in this regard, we are assisted by GCIS, yes. And then on the issue of the complexity of the complaint form, the complaint form was designed in such a manner that from the outset, we can source sufficient information from the complainant to be able to proceed with the investigation. And we found that very handy, because if the complainants complete the complaint form fully, then you find that all the required information to commence with the investigation is actually covered. So that is why the complaint form is designed in the manner it is. But as an office, whenever complainants are struggling with the complaint form, we normally assist them to actually complete it. Because, for instance, during the period of the lockdown, most of the complainants were actually contacting us through social media platforms, and then would then direct them to, or send the complaint form to them by email and coach them in terms of completing it. And we have found that process to be quite fruitful. From Honorable Mare, we wanted to know whether all the recommendations that we are making as an office are actually implemented. Well, the fact is not all recommendations that we make are implemented. And as we stand now, there are about 11 recommendations that have not been implemented. But what we have done as an office to try and address this, because in our act and regulations, there's no provision for us to provide the Chief of the National Defense Force with the preliminary report. And we realized that because the Chief was not in the picture in terms of the report that will be finally compiling, you would be surprised with receiving an instruction from the minister for him to implement the recommendation. So to assist that process, we introduced this step, And of course, we then provide the chief of the SANDF with the opportunity to respond to the preliminary report. And if it does address concerns about that, and if those concerns are valid in terms of the facts that were gathered, we take them into account and then maybe amend our final report. But if the concerns raised are not addressing themselves to the facts of the investigation, we unfortunately are forced to proceed with it. Then the second issue raised is an issue of our recommendation being binding. I must indicate that in our relations with the minister, or rather, let me say the previous minister, the way she was handling our recommendation, it was as if they are binding. Because in instances where she was not agreeing with the recommendation, she would instruct that those recommendations be taken to the High Court for review. So in that manner, therefore, we didn't feel the need that at least our recommendation should be binding. I must indicate there are instances where the minister sometimes was not clear about some of the facts covered in our final report and would send the report back to us to be able to clarify those issues, and then would clarify and finally should accept the recommendation, or in some instances then direct that at least we also direct the report to the Chief of the National Defense Force to respond where he didn't respond to the preliminary report. As to the concern by the Honorable Chair about the tension that is there along the borders between the soldiers and the police. Honorable Chair, as the office were very constrained to look into this, because you recall in my presentation of the mandate, I indicated that as an office we are reactive. We cannot be proactive because we can only investigate when we receive a complaint. So it will be really difficult for us to actually look into this until such time that perhaps our act has been reviewed to accommodate own initiative investigations. And then coming to the questions by Honorable Shelembe. The first one, he was asking whether we can investigate a matter that concerns the office of the minister. The answer is that we cannot, because our mandate covers investigating complaints of members and former members of the SANDF about their conditions of service, and members of the public about the conduct of members of the SANDF. And therefore, if there's any problem within the office of the minister, we are not empowered by our act to actually look into that. Honorable Shelembe made an observation that we are receiving a few complaints from Mpumalanga. What we do as an office, we compile this data and stats in terms of different areas from which we receive complaints. And then that informs our outreach program. Because once we have seen that this is a trend, then we make sure that we go to those areas where we're receiving less complaints to try and create awareness there. But I did indicate that this area of our work was impacted severely by the COVID-19 pandemic, and that therefore we couldn't respond timeously to some of these trends as we were seeing them developing. And of course, the last question then was, what happens where the minister does not agree with our recommendation? And I did indicate that fortunately the minister somehow regarded our recommendations as binding on her. And therefore, if she doesn't agree, she would instruct that our recommendation be taken on review. Chair, I hope I've been able to answer the question posed. If there's something I omitted, I'm ready to deal with that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, General, you have answered all the questions. The minister will comment in the end. Just to give a different, maybe just to add to the answers we've just given. But the minister said we can ask another presentation. I don't want, and maybe let's conclude on this one so that we don't keep you waiting. Minister, do you want to make a comment at this stage? Before we release the team, I'm satisfied with their answers up to this point.
Yes, Chair. I will be brief. Firstly, it is common practice that when you become a minister, you don't bring your own rules. A minister inherits the office, warts and all. If I do not agree with a decision which my predecessor took, then of course I will take it under review. But in this case, one needs to also acknowledge that Ndate Masonto says that we have not had a sit-down meeting. That is true. In our interaction, what will be interesting would be for one to look at the type of complaints that must meet the criteria that goes to the military ombuds, and the issues which must be dealt with within the normal procedures of a department and of the Defense Force itself. Because whatever it is, you do not want a situation where the ombudsman will overrule a general or a commander in a base, because then you will be messing up with military discipline. So again, perhaps when we have that sit down, I will then be able to look at the matters properly and see what is happening there, what is not happening. I have no intention, Ndate Masonto, of simply refusing or simply agreeing with the recommendations as they are put. And so perhaps we must look at the first matter which was placed before me. And it had to do with the SAMS that I think it was the OSD. And that matter had been sitting on the table because there had not been the money to agree to the recommendation, because if you say, yes, we take the recommendation, that you must follow through with the recommendation. That matter was put on my desk. Having satisfied myself that everything was in place, the budget was there to make sure that that which was recommended through the department's HR can be then rectified and be processed. We agreed to that. So I want to just reassure the general that I'm not here to do and do. I am here to ensure that, one, we have a functional defense force, but also a defense force that is disciplined. I am here to ensure that the soldier is at all costs protected But I am also here, and I do have a strong case which I am putting on the table. That is the functionality of the military police. Are they doing what they're supposed to do? Their caseload is also not moving. Why are they not moving? I'm also looking at the military courts. Are they doing what they should be doing? And therefore, are the matters which are taken to the ombudsman the same cases which should have enjoyed entertainment, processing, and prosecution by the military police and the military courts? So for me, I'm not seeing the two in fights. I am seeing a difference. And I am very happy if members of parliament, please refer them back into the structures that should be dealing with the matters if uniformed and active servicemen come to you. Because we might be enthusiastic as policemen and we might end up bringing politics into the defense force, which will be undesirable. But if it is matters which really means that the rights of people are being trampled on, racism and whatever, yes, please refer them to the relevant structures, which must first deal with those matters before we jump in. Because that is exactly the same process I'm taking. Before you have taken your matter to the relevant structures within the defense force, please don't come to me, because I have no interest in undermining the structures of the defense. But if there is anybody who is in a commanding post, who is in a place of responsibility, who is suppressing, then we will deal with it and we will make sure that people do not unnecessarily dominate where they shouldn't. People must treat people fairly. And I thought that was a space that was created for any other matter which might not fall under the direct command and control issues that could be taken somewhere else. But again, I will be looking at the recommendations that were put there. Now, the military ombuds, if I'm not mistaken, reports to the minister, which means that if the Chief Sandak is not implementing the whatever it is, that the first point of call of complaints from the ombuds is where they report, that is with the minister. Because then if the minister gets the report, the minister refers and must follow through so that the minister can then give the feedback to the ombudsman. For me, it would work better, because if there is a different reporting line, and I'm happy that the general says they have opened a line which gives the chief of SANDF an opportunity to respond before they finalize a report. That is the point before a firm position is taken on whether or not. So we will also deal with that. On the matter of the disputes around the border post, I think it would be interesting to look at the nature of the disagreements between the police and the soldiers at that point. Because it is the other one whose duty is to look into issues coming inside the Republic, and that is their business. The other one is looking inside the Republic and not there. So it should be an easy area to negotiate and to resolve if there are tensions there. But also we must say, Chairperson, all countries, especially around the Africa, have issues which now and then spring up between the police and the defense. So we shouldn't actually be thinking that it is unique to South Africa. It happens, it gets resolved. It is on which part of the territory this one is. Internally, the soldiers know that the police if we are deployed in support, it is the police that takes the lead. It is the police, even when we are with them, it is the police that arrests, it is the police that searches, we hand over. They open the cases. But on the border, we then must look at what exactly happens there, because if a policeman comes in and tries to take away the responsibility of the soldiers, definitely there will be a tension there. And I'm simply saying that we will look into that and try and deal with those things. So I would say that let's look at the areas which the Ombudsman wants to see extended. As I say, I'm not going to take anything on review, but I am definitely going to look thoroughly at the report when it comes to me to see whether it is within the purview, the area of responsibility of the military ombudsman, or whether in fact the matter in the first place belonged to the command and control structures, and whether the command and control structures are not doing what they should have been doing, so that we lightened the burden on the ombuds, but we also start cracking the whip on these two, the military police, and the military courts, because I do have issues there, Chairperson, I must say. I don't see any progress there. Matters they should have dealt with have not been dealt with, and therefore the temptation might be that, well, they're not helping us here, now we are going to the ombuds. But as it is, I'd like to keep an open line and an open mind and interact first with the ombuds, and then be able to say, yes, here I can help, and here I can't help. I am yet to have a difference with the current ombudsman. I am relatively new. That is not an excuse. So I'm saying that I will also follow up on the 11 recommendations that the Ombuds says were not implemented by Chief Sanda. I look at them at their nature, and perhaps I will get to understand from the Chief Sanda why he has not acted on those recommendations. I don't know if Deputy Minister has anything to add, but that is as far as I can take it, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM.
No, Chairperson, thank you very much. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. There are three things in the main that are a takeaway from this meeting. One is the concern, is that we are concerned about the tension that is developing on the border between the police and the SNDF. We take interest because the soldiers are deployed there as per the mandate the president derives from the Constitution. And we're happy that the minister is going to look into it. Maybe at some point we'll expect the minister to come back to us with a report, because indeed we need to find out what is happening there, so that if it needs intervention, we are, the agencies that are entrusted with the responsibilities are able to intervene in time before it becomes ugly. It's been reported, it's an issue of great concern to us. And then the second point is the issue you're raising, Minister, the 11 cases that have not been acted upon. We are happy that the minister is going to look into those matters with a view of if there's a statement of addressing the statement. And then the third issue, which is linked to this one, Minister, it was not articulated, but is an old matter. Are the cases that, you know, where the cases that were taken to court because the department was not acting. I mean, the minister stroke the chief were not acting. There are several cases where the department was taken to court by a person who appeared before the who received a ruling from the military ombuds in his favor. He received a ruling in his favor, but there was resistance to implement it. And the matter went to court, and the court confirmed the resolution of the military ombuds. There are cost implications. So we hope that all of those matters will be looked into so that we're clear as to how we move forward. Colleagues, I think we can then close on that note and thank the team for presenting the issue. And the issue of the budget and the staff filling of posts, will deal with it during the budget discussion. It's noted for now for a follow-up at the right time. So colleagues, I hope we can leave it at that. Let me thank the general and the team for the presentation this evening. Thank you very much. You are excused. All right, we now can move to the next item. I know it's going to be very brief. It's Mr. Anderson will take us through the next item. Is the Defense Force Service Commission.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good evening to yourself. Good evening to the members, honourable members of the committee, and indeed good evening to the Minister and the Deputy Minister. We do have a short presentation, but before I go into that, may I just give apologies. We are 5 commissioners. Am I audible, Chairperson?
Yes, Mr. Robinson, you are audible.
Thank you very much. We have the apology of the Deputy Chair, Commissioner Hlapaloza, and one of the other commissioners, Dr. Esap, who is based in Cape Town. They've been caught up with other work-related issues. So there are 5 of us as commissioners, and we do have some support staff who are participating and listening in, as well as the 2 researchers. Also, by way of introduction, just say that we did, in fact, the Minister made time for us. We met her in early November. We acquainted her very briefly with the work of the Commission. So she is aware of what we are doing. And she did see at that point a unconsolidated list of the recommendations that we had sent. So can I ask some of the IT to please flight our short presentation?
You mean our IT or
yes,
your
yes, yes, please. We've sent it to your. There we are. Thank you very much. Can I go on to slide 3, please? There we are. That's the scope of our presentation. Next slide, please. So we can say that the proposed retreat with the Minister, the Chief of the SANDF, Secretary for Defense, and senior officials within the Department of Defense has yet to take place. We have communicated with the Office of the Minister. She is aware, but I guess because of the busy schedule, it's not yet, the date is not yet finalized. But having said that, we have had 2 meetings in preparation. The first one was on the 1st of December, and then the second was on the 11th of February. Next slide, please. Thank you. On the 1st of December, this is what we did. We met with the Chief of Human Resources, in other words, Admiral Kubo and his team, to discuss the Minister's responses and reflecting the progress by the Department of Defense and the recommendations tabled by the Commission. There were many, many recommendations, 100 and something odd. So the outcome of that, we categorized them and prioritized the recommendations in order to elevate recommendations that required additional funds on which the Minister might need to pronounce, and other recommendations that can be pursued by the Department of Defense. This was finalized and we sent it to the Office of the Minister. Next slide, please. Then on the 11th of February, in a sense, we had a planning meeting in preparation for the ministerial retreat. Those who attended were the advisor to the Minister, the Military Secretary, members of the Ministerial Liaison Office, Chief HR, Admiral Kubo, and other senior representatives, legal people from the Department of Defense Division, as well as members of the Defense Force Service Commission. The outcome of that the Commission would unpack its mandate and clearly define its roles and functions in relation to the establishment of the Military Bargaining Council and how the operationalization of the Military Bargaining Council will impact on the mandate of the Commission. Furthermore, the Commission, together with the HR Division, needs to unpack the tools of trade. In the Chairperson, in the Defence Amendment Act, it gives a list of 20 tools of trade, 20 issues. So we need to unpack that in order to establish a common understanding by the respective role players. So this one is also still work in progress. Next slide, please. So we continue to establish a better understanding of the broader DRD on the role and function of the Commission and how its recommendations aim to uplift the morale of the soldiers. May I just say that when we sent the list of recommendations to the Minister, it's divided into 2 parts. First group reflects the recommendations that need to be elevated to the Minister for pronouncement. So we agreed that these recommendations would also form the basis of the agenda between ourselves and the Minister and other strategic stakeholders.
The system has ejected Mr. Robinson.
Can you hear me? I'm back.
Oh, yes, you're back. Okay. we
Yes,
can hear
there
you.
must have been a glitch on my side here. Because the recommendations, some of the recommendations do have financial implications. And given the financial constraints in the country as a whole and the DOD in particular, important for us to highlight those to the Minister. I think through your chair, that's the end of our short presentation. I thank you.
Yes, no, thank you so much. It was short indeed. Colleagues, this is the presentation that the Commission is making. It's, I think, the reporting work in progress towards resolving the issue that there's been a number of recommendations that remain unattended to. But our concern in the main was that there was no response to some of them. It's better to receive them, process them, and then say, these ones we accept, this one we don't accept. Those that we accept, there's no budget for them. That we all see the financial implications, so that there is progress, as it were. Colleagues, I don't see the hands. I don't see the hands. Mr. Motsomai, are you? Mr.
No, no, no. Hey.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So you can then switch off mute your phone, your gadget, please. Mr. Chebeleng. Mr. Chebeleng. His hand is up. I think he may be facing some challenges. Honorable Mutle.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thanks to Mr. Robinson, and we welcome the presentation. It's short and precise. The only unfortunate thing is that their recommendations are not really finding expression, probably because the minister is in the house. She can then give us her input as to when will she meet with the Defence Force Service Commission, as she has indicated, even from the previous, it was indicated from the previous presentation that they have not yet had an opportunity to meet with the minister. And I think these meetings are very important to ensure that there is mobility in terms of the work done by these commissions, ombuds, and both the Defence Force Commission. Because, Chair, previously we have taken a resolution that there must be a kind of a retreat between the Defence Force Service Commission with the ministry, so that they deal with some of the issues that were raised with us. If we can get an indication on that and get timelines. I think it will assist the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutle. Mr. Rader.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, look, in my reading of the mandate of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, the Defence Ombudsman and the JSC are at the core of our particular mandate. And perhaps Mr. Robinson can talk a little bit about if there's overlaps, how much cooperation there is between the two bodies, and if there is cooperation, do they meet regularly, etc. But I think Mr. Mutle is quite right, and to hear from the minister, you know, what is her intention? I think these are important role players in the Defence Force and in the operations of the Defence Force. How does she perceive them? How does she intend going forward with them? And essentially, yeah, when is she going to sit down and meet with them? I think that we previously had a situation where the last time Mr. Robertson was with us, we as a committee became a little bit angry because the commission was not given very much space to operate by the ministry. It seemed almost as if they weren't being taken seriously. And I'm hoping that the new minister changes that a little bit. You know, having a proud record of service herself, I think she understands the issues of the soldiers on the ground, and hopefully that will encourage her to take these issues a little more seriously and perhaps engage a bit more and consult. And I think, you know, consultation for me is always the key. Let's sit and talk and engage and interact as much as we can. I accept that the minister's taken over a new ministry. It's not a simple place to be, and I also acknowledge that she had a period of illness in between. But I do think that this meeting needs to be prioritized. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Chabeleng, you had wanted to have a say, but I understand you are experiencing some challenges that side. Are you back? Colleagues, he's not back yet. All right, Minister, I think we are done from our side. But before I come to you, let me check if Mr. Robinson has any response to the questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just one thing. I did, or two things. I made it in my opening remarks. I did indicate that we had met with the minister in early November. We briefed her in terms of the Commission's mandate, its responsibilities. So she's aware of it. She had a lot on her plate, but she's aware of it. And she did indicate that we needed to sit down and unpack some of these issues. So as I said, we'd had a couple of preparatory meetings, and the result of this is what I've indicated. Coming to Honourable Ryder's comment or question, we do have a memorandum of understanding with the Military Ombud. As a commission, we don't entertain individual complaints, and in our visits to various units and bases, we've always indicated that we don't entertain individual complaints, but if that is before 2019, prior to COVID, when we were able to visit bases, that we've received a collective grievance from members of a particular unit. So it's not an individual grievance. We have then passed that on to the Military Ombud, and the head of that at the time was retired General Matanzima. So just to repeat, Honorable Rider, we do have a memorandum of understanding. In fact, it's been on our agenda to revise that and meet with the present Military Ombud and his team and take them through the revised MOU. But yes, we do have that. I think that's all the comments from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Let me just check if the Deputy Minister would not want to come in before I ask the Minister to make a final comments. DM?
Chair, thank you very much. Nothing from my side at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DM. Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I have upfront said I have not met with the Ombudsman and his team. I have not said I do not want to meet with them. I have not had a date for the meeting to meet up with the Ombudsman. I have known this general since both of us were teenagers out there in Angola eating baboons. And therefore, there would be absolutely no reason why I would refuse to meet with a structure which is integral to the proper functioning of the defense. So I want to dispel that, Mr. Ryder, that there could be some ulterior movement why I have not met up with them. Mr. Robertson is right. In fact, that retreat being referred to came out of an interaction, a long meeting between ourselves with them, that I suggested that perhaps what we needed to do was to take time off in an informal setting where we have time on our, enough time to take up all the other functions, understanding, because as in that inaugural meeting we had, it occurred to me that in fact, when we have new members or members who have not served in the military, serving in military related structures, you do need some orientation, because the tensions that were arising as I was getting that report were indicating to me that there is sometimes no appreciation from members who were serving in the Service Commission to the responsibilities of an officer commanding a base, and that there were no demarcations, that you could not walk into a base and demand to see soldiers without having made proper. If anything, then there is no need to have any commander, there is no need to have anything, then we shouldn't call them, we should call them, even in the police, you make those arrangements. And therefore there were little fine lines which we needed to say, hey, let's break up, let's go and look at this thing. The second thing that we needed to come back and look at was, when the Service Commission was inaugurated, you must remember that there were no unions, labor unions allowed in the military. And therefore, this Service Commission was in a way taking the responsibility to represent the interests which are related to the work of the, to labor issues, HR issues of the soldiers on their behalf, and try and interact there. And we were saying, now that one union had reached the threshold, we may want to amicably go sit down again and say, so now, what is the role? Where do we find one another? How relevant is the service? And I want to be very upfront, because I do not want to have a clash between what the unions will do in the defense and what the Service Commission thinks it will continue doing. So we need to break out, sit down and deal with that. We are working to get a date. I think more or less, Mr. Robertson, my office has said that there is a date identified, and we are going to sit down and discuss. It is again me saying, and when we go on that retreat, please invite the members of the committees of parliament so that all of us are sitting there in an informal meeting, informal setting, discussing in the interest of keeping a very disciplined, coordinated defense force. So for me, that is what we are all about. I am never going to run away from responsibilities, all of them. And all of them must enjoy equal attention from myself as the Deputy Minister. And I can assure you, making sure that we return respect, pride, and integrity into the defense force is something that drives me. Making sure that when we return those things to the defense, that dignity and pride of the soldier, we also return the trust and the respect of South Africans into their military is something that also drives me. Making sure that our systems as South Africa, our defense force is doing what is conventional in other countries, especially those that we have relationships with, is also a driving force, because there are a number of instances where we are doing things which are not in sync with other militaries. For instance, you have a bulging wage bill. Should we be having it? No, we shouldn't, because there are certain policies which we have not put in place in the defense force. And the defense force might not see the need, but from us who are sitting with the personnel, who are sitting with the comments of the Auditor General and Treasury, it is important for us to start doing that. And it would not be imposing civilian policies on the military. We will be doing what other militaries are doing. And therefore, I just wanted to categorically say and to reassure this committee, I will do my job. But I will also do my job within the time allocated and make sure that all aspects of the defense are attended to. And that includes sitting with the Ombudsman. And I'm open, this general knows, we will sit, we will have that discussion, we will see how we can help out, and we will see how we make sure that whatever recommendations come are carried out. If we do not agree, we will also not be ashamed or afraid to say to the general, we think you are overstepping the mark here, and these are our reasons why we say this and that and that. And if the general has it, we will also make sure that whatever it is that is put in front of us is implemented by the Chief Sander. So that is why I committed to following up on the 11 recommendations, because if the former minister agreed to those recommendations, then they should have been implemented. I have no business in going against anything that the former minister has done. In law, if I understand properly, it is not the name of the minister that is important, it is the office of the minister. And therefore you continue with the work. Unless something is fundamentally wrong, you continue with the work, you inherit the office, you don't inherit the name, of course. And therefore, that is what I definitely intend to do. So I have that commitment, Chairperson, that I will follow through. I will make sure that those meetings happen and that retreat actually happens with you, both committees invited, so that we don't leave anybody away from what we understand and what we finally agree with. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm reading on the chat. It seems to be a warm reception to the suggestion of members being invited to the retreat. So welcome an invitation, Minister, to attend the retreat. And we are excited that the issues, the recommendations of the Commission are receiving attention, as it were. We were concerned about about the state funding an institution whose recommendations were simply ignored. So we're happy with the way you've just suggested it. I think we have come to the end of this presentation, colleagues, and we can't take further than this because it's work in progress. Tabo, is your hand still up?
No, it's an old hand, Chair.
A young man with an old hand, I can understand it. So the Defence Force Service Commission is therefore excused. Thank you very much. And we can then move to the next item. Minister, the next item is the program of the committee. I'm sure we can release you at this stage. We'll send it to you once adopted, but I don't think we'll adopt it today. You may want to give comments to it. Let me just look at it. You may want to comment, Minister, so that we look at it. Colleagues, I don't want us to. Nandipa, is this the last meeting of the committee?
Yes, Chair, it's the last meeting, Chair. So if possible, if it can be adopted today, Chair.
Oh, no, let's adopt the program for the 21st of April. So that I can then allow members to comment on the program. Colleagues, can we look, here is the program, I'm tabling it, but let's conclude the issues for the 21st of April so that we have a good start in the new term. If you give me the first 2 weeks, I would be happy. And then we can deal with the rest of the we'll still submit it as a draft to the team and then come back later and amend it if you want to. Colleagues, here are the issues. But if you are happy with it, you can adopt it as is. Yes, Mr. Moran?
Chairperson, just on the 21st of April, you will recall that they were supposed to give us feedback on various operations, amongst others, Vikela. So if that feedback is on the investigation into the food-related challenges in Mozambique, I'm just wondering whether we can include that feedback. I mean, at that stage, we will also know whether they further extended our employment in Mozambique. But all of that is under the same operation. So I'm just wondering. I see that the second bullet is in anticipation that it will be extended, and I'm just wondering whether that'll be an ideal meeting for them to give us feedback on that operations. And you will recall that last time the deputy minister has also indicated that they would rather come back to us on some of the matters in terms of the deployment. So that is just my request. Otherwise, I don't see anywhere in this program where we will get any of those outstanding feedbacks that we have got oversight over.
Okay, I don't know what exactly do you want a briefing on. I would prefer us not to discuss a war. I mean, the issues pertaining to the operational issues in Mozambique.
Especially in
sorry, can I finish?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I don't want us to discuss issues pertaining to operational matters in Mozambique. The situation is it doesn't require that. There's war going on there, and if anything, it would be issues around what is happening, not what is happening, including.
Yeah, I think you're quite right, and especially in an open meeting, that is. But I'm just referring to matters that was on the agenda, and that was at our meetings and where they have requested to come back to us with more information. Obviously, we don't want anything that will endanger the lives of our soldiers. And if needs be, then we must, if there are justification for that, then we must again get a closed session for that. But we don't want the detail.
No. What are those issues? I just want to understand it, Mr. Murray.
I think you must just go back to the previous agendas and specifically where it was on the agenda. We had it on the agenda, Operation Vikela and some of the other operations. And then specifically the Deputy Minister said at that meeting, they would rather come back to us at another time, and seeing that that is the only day that anything around Vikela, I mean, the 21st of April deals with Vikela. That is all that is on that table. So it's Vikela. So that's why I'm saying that will be the ideal place for them to give us the outstanding feedback from the previous minutes that they have requested to come back to us on.
Peter, can you assist us if you can still recall what Mr. Murray is talking about?
Yes, Chair. I think Mr. Murray is referring to matters that we said that we want to discuss in a closed meeting. And I think one of the first things that he referred to, Chair.
There is Solani, can you switch off Solani? All right, Peter.
Yeah, Chair, I think Mr. Murray is referring to issues that he said he would like to discuss in a closed meeting, specifically with regards to the Joint Standing Committee on Defense. And the one issue, Chair, I think we have dealt with in some way 2 weeks ago was the whole issue around the NEL and the future of the NEL, and that we should have a discussion on that, and that was supposed to be in the closed meeting. The other thing that he referred to, Chair, was questions that weren't answered in an open meeting, and he said that in a closed meeting he will answer those questions. So those are the things that I...
No, I'm not referring to issues for a closed meeting. I was actually talking about issues pertaining to Operation Vigena. I'll check. I wanted you to remind me what are those issues that remain outstanding in relation to that deployment or in our engagement in Mozambique.
Chair, I think the one issue was with regards to the reimbursement. Remember, this is a subject deployment, and it was stated from the start that SADC will reimburse South Africa. So that is one of the issues that we wanted to follow up on, Chair.
And the other aspect was also to find out that they would come back to us on how well is our soldiers resourced over there. Are there any shortcomings? And I mean, the food was one of them. Also in terms of whether they've got adequate air support either from South Africa or from SADC, so that we know that our soldiers are in the safest possible deployment over there. And you will recall that the president, the minister of this deputy minister has asked that we do not discuss it at that meeting where it was on the agenda, and that we would rather come back. And so all that I'm saying is, otherwise there's no opportunity at all that we will discuss Vikela, and it seems like it is something off the table from now on, that we should not discuss Vikela, irrespective of what happens there. And that is kind of uncomfortable for me, if we have got oversight over that.
Okay, so, but it's discussing the resources given to our military out there that I have a problem with. We may actually unknowingly compromise the security situation in that province. But if you want that transacted in a closed meeting, maybe we can provide for that. Obviously, it's not going to be anytime soon, because we are discussing the meeting of the 21st of, we're discussing assuming this being open. But for closed meetings, we must find a day, 1 or 2, to discuss matters that cannot be discussed like this. But as for Mozambique, in an open meeting, I think that's a food issue, the food poisoning issue. That's one of them. Can we conclude the meeting of the 21st and 28th, colleagues? Colleagues, can you comment on the program as a whole and see what progress we make? Thabo, do you want to make a comment?
It seems like it is cast in stone to me.
Do you think so?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
not necessarily. The program is fine. I'm not sure whether we will come back. Can we? We are not doing enough. What do you call these things? When we are on recess, going to visit some of the areas that would want to. We are not doing enough of that. I'm not sure whether we can incorporate that. I know the previous administrative committee, they went to DRC, so forth and so on. But I'm not sure. We should consider integrating that into our program, because the lockdown has been reduced, or we are on easy lockdown, so we should not restrict ourselves from doing those kind of oversight.
I fully agree. I fully agree. But there's no space on this agenda of this program for that. Nothing.
Yes, because you see, I don't know. Just go down. Look, we will be guided by the program, the framework developed by the chair of the House chairs, whether there's going to be an oversight, a period or not. Like as it is, for the portfolio committee, we're scheduled to have an oversight towards the end of the month. And just recently, I heard that the time now will be utilized for meetings for an assembly to discuss the vote of no confidence and so on. So, and they're saying there must be no oversight visits during that week. So I'm saying that we sometimes, it's not because we want, but it's because the program doesn't provide for it. But I've looked at the program. I'm fine with it. And can we adopt it as a whole, as a working, as a living document? We'll amend it if we have to.
Yeah, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms.
Okay.
Paki.
Do you want us to comment?
I
don't want to comment. I just want to propose that we adopt program as is, as you suggested, and then they can still work on it.
Yes, and yes, it's adopted subject to us further discussing the items for a closed meeting. This is for an open meeting. Colleagues, Mr. Murray, are you happy with that?
I would rather refrain at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I did raise my hand, but
yes. Sorry. My apologies, sir. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm just commenting that I had my hand up and
yes, please. You can make your comment.
Thank you very much, Chair. What I've done is I've posted in the comments section the mandate of the committee. Once again, and we all know it, the committee shall be competent to investigate and make recommendations regarding the budget functioning, the organization, armaments, policy, morale, and state of preparedness of the National Defence Force. So, you know, I think that any program that we consider, any item that's on that program must fall within that mandate. And broadly speaking, I think the majority of it does fall within that mandate. However, Chair, I do think we also need to look at what we are not addressing. And instead of going back and over-addressing or revisiting the same things every quarter, we also need to look at various gaps in the program that are not addressing the mandate. So specifically the one that I'd like to point out. Now, I think perhaps Mr. Mutle's point is relevant to what I'm saying, is that, you know, the National Assembly Committee has the duty of the BRRR and does the budget review. But the actual functioning of the budget, how it works on the ground, how that is affecting our soldiers, that is our area. And the fact is that, you know, we again see comments that are coming out in the media saying that our Navy doesn't have money to service its ships, our Air Force doesn't have money to deal with its airplanes, and we're finding ourselves in deeper and deeper trouble. So yes, our budget functioning is not working appropriately. Our armaments are going backwards. And in fact, the state of preparedness of the National Defence Force is currently inadequate because, you know, we still have this question. Do we have sufficient air support in Mozambique or don't we? As a member of this committee, I have that question mark hanging over me, and I honestly feel that it hasn't been answered. So, you know, is it right that we focused back on some of the same issues that we've dealt with recently that we know haven't progressed very far in the last 2-3 months, and we're just going to get a straightforward answer? Or do we need to actually physically go and do oversight and hear from the Navy, and certainly in a closed environment, Chairperson, what the real situation is in terms of the Navy's functioning? Hear from the Air Force, what is the real functioning on the ground? And that should probably not be in an open meeting. But Chair, there's a need for those discussions, and it's our responsibility. It's our mandate. We're ignoring it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so
Chairperson, I just want to support that, because if you look at the program, there's only 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days, that is really in a joint standing committee on defense matters. The others are portfolio committee matters. So we're getting involved in ordinary stuff and not the critical stuff of the Defence Force, and that's my concern. It seems like we are going back to where we were in the 5th Parliament, of flimsy, you know, joint standing committee meetings, and basically confusing the issues of the portfolio committee, and so it is. Yeah, I've got a bit of a problem with this program. It seems like it is just to fill up dates and not really to do the hard work and the important stuff. So yeah, I'm disappointed, but that's only my view.
I'm inviting you to propose items, propose deletions, propose.
Thank you, Chair.
I've tried to do that, and then you
sorry. Please listen, Mr. Murray. Please listen. You just want to speak, even when I've not asked you to speak. That creates a problem, and the meeting will not finish if we continue like this. So all I'm saying is that the Mozambique situation, if it relates to the resources, the resourcing of the guys of the military deployed there, cannot be transacted in an open meeting. That would be in a closed meeting. So there's agreement on that one. That's one. So I must then find a date for a closed meeting. Now, and so that goes to issues that Mr. Ryder is talking about. You know, we had agreed that we'll drill into the details of, you know, the equipment in Navy, Air Force, and so on and so forth. So that is taken care of. Now, besides that issue, which is those issues that are reserved for a closed meeting, what do you want to delete and add to this agenda, the program that is before you? It is not going to help.
My hand is up.
Yes, it's not going to help to not address the issue and think that the issues are going to resolve themselves. Mr. Matsamai?
Yeah, Chair, I was saying, you see the issue of Mozambique, it needs us to go for an oversight visit to the Mozambique. Because when you look on the issue of the people, the food were poisoned, how safe are our soldiers are there? And another thing, there's a place where our soldiers were shot and killed by the rebel. We must make sure that on the closed meeting, when can we go in for an oversight in Mozambique and check for our soldiers? I think you Chair.
Okay. So it's proposing an oversight into Mozambique at some point. It's fine. But I said that will be determined once the chair Peter, let me just come back to you. Do we know when we would be allowed to take to go on an oversight visit?
Chair, not at this stage. For instance, on this program, Chair, that one meeting that we said that we actually want to go to one military hospital where we're saying here that we want to have a briefing. But then if we look at the program, Chair, the NCOP program doesn't allow for it. And in addition to that, Chair, once we take note that the second term is going to be very busy for the PC. So it's going to be difficult. So that's why right at the end, Chair, we are proposing there that we should actually have a discussion there on the 9th of June, where we're proposing there the second item. Our third term program should be, considered, as well as a discussion on study tour. And the suggestion we want to make, Chair, is that, like we did in the previous parliament, that near the end of the year, then we, for instance, go to the DRC, and we can then also consider whether we can go to Mozambique, Chair. So that is what I have to say at this stage around that, Chair.
Okay. So, right. Mr. Matsomai, are you covered?
I'm covered, Chair. I'm covered.
Thank you. Mr. Mare, are you covered?
Yeah, not really, sir, but I will stand at my point. Thank
you. Mr. Ryder, are you covered?
No, Chair. Sorry, I really feel that, a visit to, and let us remember that Fridays are set aside for joint committees. And a visit to Simonstown Naval Base is right there for all of us, Chairperson. A visit to the Air Force can be really easily organized for all of us on a Friday, that we get together and hear exactly what the situation is in terms of the functioning of the budget. Is the budget working for these entities? Because I know what the answer is. But I'd love them to draw pictures for us, like they did last time, when they showed us how they've started to cannibalize certain equipment in order to keep a bare minimum available. Chair, I really think it's important that we start having real conversations about how this budget allocation that we're getting is pushing us further backwards as it is. That is our mandate. And if Fridays are available for that, I'm all for it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Peter, I think he is making a point that we must utilize one of the Fridays for an oversight, a visit to one of the bases, military bases. In this case, is suggesting a navy in Cape Town. We may think of another one elsewhere. The program of the NSOP allowing, of course, it's just that they do sit on Fridays or have other meetings on Fridays. Are you happy with, are your Fridays, no NSOP meetings on Fridays? So in other words, it means that we have a Friday open, colleagues. In fact, if we can take a Friday and a Saturday, let's propose utilizing Saturday in one of the weeks. If we think a Friday, one Friday will not be sufficient, one day will not be sufficient. Peter, can you look at that, please?
Yes, Chair, I will come back and make suggestions with regard to that.
All right. So on this basis, do we adopt the program, colleagues? Subject to us finding a day for an oversight, one, two, finding a day for a closed meeting to consider items that cannot be considered in the open meeting.
Yes,
Chair.
yes, Chair, I made a proposal.
Yes, Ms. Bartlett has moved.
Chair, yeah, it's seconded with those conditions made.
Thank you very much. Seconded with those conditions made. All right, so the program is adopted. Colleagues, can we, I don't think we have time to deal with the minutes. We only have one set of minutes. Nadipa, not so?
Yes, Chair, it's only one set.
Yeah, okay, we've run out of time. Colleagues, do you still want us to consider the minutes and close the chapter?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, put the minutes up. There's no objection. Please. All right, these are the minutes of the 10th. It was a briefing by the Reserve Force Council and the Reserve Command on challenges facing the Reserve Force. All right, so this is the attendance. Just go down. All right, so this was the attendance. Okay, any corrections? Continue up until the end of the page. Page 2, any correction? Continue. Page 3. Continue. Page 4. Page 5. Colleagues, may I present the minutes? Are they the true reflection of what transpired? Can I get a move and a seconder?
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
before I move, Chair, Honorable Bartlett, it
Yes,
went too quick on page 1, and I didn't want to stop the process. I just want to check the attendance there before I move.
Just look at this page. Just don't go away. Just look at the last page. Having gone through the minutes, Ms. Bartlett moved for adoption and seconded by Mr. Sheller. We were in the meeting.
Oh, okay, then I move.
Yeah, so so please move this one as well so that they don't make a mistake and leave your name out.
Thanks, Chair.
So Ms. Bartlett moves. Any second?
I second that, Chair.
And Mr. Masonya is seconds. Colleagues, thank you very much for your time. And we've gone over time, and the meeting is still adjourned until we meet again in the next quarter. Thanks to the team as well.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mares.
He's gone.